Hello guys, hope all of you are doing great. In this part of the video, we are going to create this web page almost from scratch. As you can see here, this web page is showing you the details of all the programs offered by a university. These program details along with the names of their corresponding departments, they are coming from a database. As you can see here, we're going to apply CSS to create these small visual effects on the web page. And also we're going to apply CSS to make this web page responsive. As you can see here, if I resize my screen, you can see the fonts will be automatically adjusted. See here, all these we are going to do in this video. While doing so, we'll be learning about how we can handle events in a JavaScript program, how we can make an AJAX call from a JavaScript program to the server side, and how to receive the response of an AJAX call in the form of a JSON object, and then how to parse JSON object using JavaScript, and then how to create HTML content dynamically from a JavaScript program. And at the end, obviously, we'll be learning how to apply CSS to create these visual effects on a web page. Okay, guys, then let's begin today's part. We are building a web page which is part of a web-based student management system which is hosted in a web server. And again, it is connected with a database server inside which we already have created this database, student management system. And inside that database, we have two tables. One is program details table and another one is this department details table. And we also have created two PHP classes to provide us the programmatic interface to interact with these two database tables. Note here, this video is a part of a series of videos where we have been learning how to make a web-based application from scratch using PHP, MySQL, JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And prior to this video, there are three parts. It is not a necessity that you actually have to go through those previous parts before watching this video. But if you want to know the entire process, like how to make such an application from scratch, then it's a good idea that after watching this video, if people go to the playlist whose link you will get in the description section and watch those videos also. Till now, whatever we have been doing, everything was related to this server side. In this part of the video, what we're going to do is we're going to connect the client side with the server side. Today, we are going to make use of everything, CSS, JavaScript, HTML, and certainly this PHP. Since there are lots of things involved, it's a good idea that first we see the steps involved in the process, which will help us actually where to write which part of the code. It means where to write the JavaScript code, where to write the CSS code, and where to write the PHP code, and all these things. For that, let me show you these things. We already know, let me hide myself for some time. As we know, there are these two sides, this client side and the server side. On the client side, we have this web browser as the communicating program. And on the server side, we have this web server as the communicating program. The user initiates the process by requesting for a specific PHP file from the server. And when the request is received by the server, it executes that specific PHP file. We write the code of this PHP file in such a way that when this PHP file is executed, you can think of a PHP file as nothing but it is an executable PHP program. So when we execute this PHP program, we want our output to be some HTML content, which links to some specific JavaScript file as well as links to some specific CSS files will also be included. Once this output is generated by the execution of the specific PHP file, this output will be sent back to the client machine. When the client browser receives this response from the server, it first renders the HTML content on the screen. In this specific example, we want this initial HTML content to contain only the heading of the page. The rest of the page we want initially to be blank. Instead, what we will do is we'll write the code inside this specific JavaScript file. Let's call it say program getProgramDetails.javascript or JS. Inside this JavaScript file, we'll write the code in such a way that as soon as this page is loaded, this initial HTML content is loaded, automatically a function will be called. And from inside that JavaScript function, we want to make an AJAX call to the server requesting for the details of the programs from the database. Now, when this AJAX call is received by the server, on the server side, again, we'll write a specific PHP file where we will write the code that we want to execute when the AJAX call is processed by the server. See here, you can think of an AJAX call as if it is a call to a specific function from a specific PHP file in the server. Now, when that function is executed, we want the output of that function to be in the form of JSON object, and that JSON object will be sent back again to the client machine. In this specific example, we want our AJAX function to generate an array of JSON objects, where each JSON object in the array will correspond to a row from the program details table in the database. As soon as the JavaScript program, which is getting executed in the client web browser, receives this JSON object or the array of JSON objects, it first parses that array of JSON objects, and then from that array of JSON object, it will create some HTML content to create this web page on the screen. While creating this HTML content, it will make use of some CSS, and that CSS will write inside this program.css or getProgramDetails.css file. Now see here, this HTML content again might contain some HTML elements like these buttons with which the user can again interact and raise some events. The code that we want to get executed when those events are raised, we will be writing them inside this JavaScript file, inside the same JavaScript file. In this video, we'll be doing from this point to this point, rendering this page. What will happen when the user clicks on these buttons, will be continuing that part in the next part of the video. But if you know up to this point, then the rest of the things will be only some duplication of the or repetition of the same concept. Now let's quickly go through the files that we have to write to complete this project. First file that we have to write is this getProgramDetails.php file. This is the initial file, landing page you can call it. And then along with this PHP file, we also have to write the code for this getProgramDetails.javascript file, getProgramDetails.css file. So these three files, getProgramDetails.php, this is this JavaScript file, this CSS file. Plus, we also have to write the code for this ProgramDetailsAjax.php. This is the fourth file, right? And that's all. These four we have to write. If we can write the code inside these four files properly, then we'll have this project ready. Okay, then let's begin our code. For that, open Visual Studio Code, and from Visual Studio Code, open the project folder. We already have created this SMS project folder, which is there inside C drives, gems, htdocs, and then inside that we have this SMS folder somewhere. Yes, this is our root folder. I'm opening this particular folder. Okay, done. As I said prior to this part, there are three parts already. So in those parts, we have already created this root folder SMS, and inside that folder, we have created this database folder that contains the the classes that provides us the interface to interact with the database tables programmatically. So that much only we had previously. Okay, now today what we're going to do is before actually writing the code, let me first create a few folders and then we'll continue with the project. Okay, so for that, let me first create the folders, and then I'll tell you like why I have created these folders and what I'm going to store inside those folders. For that, first let me create inside this SMS folder, I'll be creating a folder whose name is I'm keeping as UI, that is user interface. Okay, another folder I'll create whose name I'll keep as JavaScript. Another folder I'll create whose name I'll keep as CSS. Another folder I'll create whose name I'll keep as AJAX handler, or simply I can call AJAX. And then another folder I'll create that I'll call as global. That much only. Okay, now let's see what we're going to put inside this user interface folder. Inside this user interface folder, we'll be putting all these landing pages. Now, this is only one page we are developing right now, but as I said, this page is actually a part of, or could be a part of a large web-based application. So in that case, there could be multiple landing pages based on the feature. So all these landing pages we're going to put inside this user interface folder. Okay, let me create this. Now for today's project, let me create this getProgramDetails.php file inside this folder. So I'm selecting this folder, and inside that I'm creating this getProgramDetails.php PHP. Initially, I'll keep it blank. I'm just creating the files and folders initially. Okay. So done. This file is created inside this folder. And then what we want is, see, more or less with all these, landing pages, there will be one JavaScript file associated and there will be one CSS file associated. So we'll be creating these two files inside the JavaScript and CSS folders correspondingly. So for that reason, what I'll do is I'll create inside the CSS folder, I'll create a file and whose name I'll keep same. For all these files, the landing page file's name and the CSS file name and the JavaScript file name, so that we come to know, okay, all these files are, more or less, they are related somehow, right? So, but the extension I have to give as CSS in this case, certainly, to make it a CSS file. The same thing I'll do with the JavaScript also. That is, inside the JavaScript folder, I'm going to create a file whose name is get program details, but the extension I'll give as JS to make it a JavaScript file. So our files are more or less ready. So see here what we have done till now. We created these folders, user interface folder. Inside that we have created this file. Inside this JavaScript file we have created this file. Inside this CSS file we have created this CSS file. All of them are blank right now. And then inside this AJAX file, what we are going to create, we are going to create, see here, this AJAX handler file. There could be more than one AJAX handler files. Okay, so all these AJAX handler files will be writing inside these. We'll be creating inside this AJAX folder. So for the time being, I'm keeping the same name, but I'm giving it this postfix AJAX, and then it's a PHP file again. Okay, so PHP file done. So all this AJAX handler will be creating inside this AJAX folder. Done. And what about this global folder? Okay, database, the content of the database folder, it is already there. What about this global folder? See, we're going to use jQuery library for JavaScript, and we're going to use Bootstrap library. We'll be using Bootstrap minimally, but then also we'll be using it. So we'll be using this Bootstrap library. So we are going to put the code of JavaScript and Bootstrap library inside this global folder. Okay, but we'll be doing it in a moment, not now. Before that, let's start our project by writing some code inside this get program details file. Okay, I'm opening this get program details.php file, and then here I'm going to write some code. See, I'm not going to write actually, although I'm calling it as a PHP file, but I'm not going to write any PHP code here. Rather, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply write some HTML content here. Okay, so let's start with this tag HTML. Okay, let me bring myself back. Okay, I'm back again. So why there is a strip? The lighting is anyhow. I'm sorry. Okay, let's write some HTML content here. Let's start with this HTML tag, and done. And inside that, let's create this head tag. And then inside this head tag, let's give it a title. Keep the page as title, and I'm calling it, say, get program details. And that much only in the head tag for the time being. And then let's write the body tag, and then write inside this body tag, let's create this what you call main tag, and inside that let's create a div tag. Inside that, let's display the first the heading of the page. Okay, say program details. What I mean is this heading. Okay, that much only. Now our initial HTML page is ready. Now we can actually request for this get program details.php file, that is this file from the server. Let's try it. So we'll be writing localhost, and inside that our root folder is SMS. Inside that we have this user interface. Inside that we have this get program details.php. I press enter. You can see it is showing me get program details as an output here. Okay, now see, this code that I have written here, it is not a PHP code, right? I have not used any PHP tag or nothing like that. So in that case, what will happen is when we request for this PHP page, Since it is not a PHP file, so the content of the file itself will be sent back as a response to the client machine. So as a result, on the client side, what we're going to receive is actually the client browser will receive this thing here. See here, it is exactly the same content that I wrote in my PHP file. So the same content is received by the client browser. And since it is this content represents some valid HTML content, so it is actually displayed on a browser in this way. Clear up to this point? Okay. Now let's include those CSS and JavaScript file with our initial HTML content. That's what we want, right? I mean, you see. Okay, I think it's better that I completely hide myself. You see here with this initial HTML content, we also have to include this link to this JavaScript file as well as this CSS file. These files we already have created, but only thing is that we have to link them with this initial HTML content. So for that, let's first link the CSS file. That will be linked with using this link tag. Okay, link is an HTML tag with the help of which you can actually link CSS files with your HTML content. Here you have to use this attribute href. Where you'll be specifying the path to the CSS file, which is there in this case SMS folder. Inside that we have the CSS folder. Inside that we have this get program details.css. Let me check if the name is right. Get program details.css. Okay, that's all. And also we have to specify the relationship rel attribute. Specify the value for this attribute, which is always style sheet. Most of the times you'll be writing style sheet here. So here this process, this including a CSS file with your HTML content, this is a standard procedure. I mean, only thing is that this name of the file will be changed. The rest of the things will always remain same. Okay. And once your CSS file is linked, now the next part is like next step is to include this JavaScript file. For that reason, what we'll do is we'll create a div after the main tag, and then there we'll be using this script tag to include JavaScript file with CRIPT with our HTML content. Okay, and inside this script tag you have to specify the value of the attribute source, where you'll be specifying the path of the JavaScript file, that is your SMS oblique JavaScript oblique get program details.js. Okay, done. And this is how we include the the CSS and JavaScript files with our HTML content. Let's see whether it is working or not. So for that reason, I'm refreshing this page once again, and then I'll view the page source here. See, the page source is now showing the links. Now, whether these links are working properly or not, how do we check? Just by clicking on this link. So if after clicking on the link, it takes me to that specific file, it means that the link is working. So here again, I will click on this link. It is also taking me to that specific JavaScript file. So this link is also working. So it means our things are working. Okay, now the next step is let's include now the JavaScript, the jQuery library. Okay, so for that reason, what we'll do is we'll go to web browser, we'll open Google, my internet is off, we'll go to Google, and then there we'll be typing jQuery. Okay, jQuery, and then from there you click on this the first link here, and you'll get this homepage of jQuery.com, and then from there you'll get this download option. You just click there. And from here, you select download compressed production. You just click on the first link, and then it will open this text file sort of. Okay, you just copy everything from this text file by pressing Ctrl+A, and then copy it by pressing Ctrl+C, and then you go to Visual Studio Code. Inside that, go to the global folder. You remember I said we'll be putting the jQuery and Bootstrap code inside this global folder. Okay, inside this global folder, create a file. Let's call it jQuery.js. It should be a JS file. And inside that jQuery.js file, paste the content that you copied from the web page. That's all. Initially, it might look like as if it is a single line, but you don't need to worry about it. We never have to actually go through the code of this jQuery.js file. Okay, we just have to include it with our code. That's all. And save it, and then you can close it. But next time if you open it, you will actually see it, okay, not in a single line, you will see it in this way. Okay, okay, done. Now our jQuery file is all included. Now let's include that jQuery, the part of the jQuery file with our HTML content. But while including it, you have to see it's a JavaScript file, so including process will be same. I mean, the same tag we have to use. But the thing is, you remember, the first you have to include the jQuery JavaScript file, then you have to include your custom JavaScript file if you want to make use of jQuery in your custom JS files. Okay, so for that reason, first we'll be including the path to the jQuery file. So here it is sms/global, and then inside that we have this jQuery.js file. Okay, before actually using it, let's first see whether it is already properly connected or not. Just by clicking on this page source, I can view it. Yes, now it is taking me to that file. It means it is properly connected. Now we can use it actually. Okay, let's use it then. So what is the first thing that we wanted was, like, as soon as this page is loaded, we want to execute some function. It means what? Inside this JavaScript code, we should be able to capture the page load event. That is as soon as the document is loaded or the page is loaded. Okay, so that can be done very easily using this jQuery library. Okay, and that is one of the reasons that I prefer to use jQuery library. It makes our life very easy actually. Okay. Okay, let's write the code inside this get program details.js file. We know that, like, that part of the code we have to write, like, the handling of the page load event we have to write inside this JS program details.js file, right? So we'll be opening that program details.js file, which is here inside this. Okay, inside this JS file we'll be we want to capture now the page load event. Okay, and using JavaScript, using jQuery, it is very easy. As I said, for that reason, what you have to do is you have to write $, and inside bracket you have to write this document word, and then inside this after that you have to write this ready function. Okay, that's all. Document.ready, it means as soon as the page is loaded on the browser completely, this function will be, this function will be called. Now see here what you pass inside this document.ready function. Inside this function, you actually pass another function, a reference to a function. See, like pointer to functions in C programming, from C programming. That's the same concept here. You can pass a function as a parameter to another function, right? So that's the same thing we want to do. That is, as soon as this document is ready, we want to execute this function. Okay, and inside that function, we'll be doing something. And for the time being, let's just display a message on the screen, an alert message on the screen, like say, for example, jQuery loaded. Let's refresh this page and check the output. You can see jQuery loaded is coming on the screen. It means it is working, right? Okay, now what we want when the document is ready, not to display this alert message, we want to make an AJAX call. You see here, as soon as the document is loaded, we want to call a function, JavaScript function, and from inside that function, we have to make an AJAX call. Let's do that part. So as soon as the document is loaded, we want to call a function. So let's call it, say, for example, get program details. Okay, now this is just a function I'm going to write in this JavaScript file, get program details. Okay, now this function will be writing the body of the function. We have to write outside this ready function. So you have to make use of this keyword function to write a function in JavaScript, and then and inside this, from inside this function, we have to make an AJAX call. And making an AJAX call again using jQuery is very easy. You just have to write this $ symbol, then dot, then AJAX. That's all. But when you make an AJAX call, you have to actually pass a JSON object as an input to this AJAX call. And a JSON object is written in this format, like open flower bracket and close flower bracket. That's all. And here you will be specifying some key value pairs. The first key will be the URL key. Okay. Against this URL key, you have to specify the name of the PHP file which is going to handle this AJAX call. You see here, we want this particular AJAX file to handle the AJAX call. So for that reason, we have to specify the path of this PHP file as the URL here. So we'll be writing here where that specific AJAX handler is inside this folder AJAX, that is inside SMS, we have this folder AJAX, and inside that we have this, see here, inside this SMS folder. Inside this SMS folder, we have this AJAX folder. Inside this AJAX folder, we have this, get program details.ajax. So what we'll do is we will go to our JavaScript code here, and inside that, here we'll be specifying this part. Okay, so this is the URL, and then you have to write a comma. I mean, the first key value pair is specified. Then you will be specifying the second key value pair, and the second key is the type key. Okay, and against this type key, you have to specify. You can specify either post or get. You see here, there are two ways of submitting an HTML page to the server, post method and guest method. So you can write anything here, post or get. I'm writing here post, okay? But you have to write it within double quotation. Then the second key value pair is also specified. The third one is data type key. Against this data type key, you have to specify what type of data or what type of return value you are expecting from the server. You see, you know functions, right? The return type of a function, the same thing more or less. But here, what we have to write here is what type of data we are expecting from the server. And as I said, the return value of these AJAX calls, we want to be in the form of JSON objects. So here, what we have to write is, yes, we have to write here JSON. That is, we are expecting from the server some JSON object. We are expecting from the server to return us some JSON objects. Okay, the next key value pair you have to specify is the data itself. Okay, like now this data is, see, when you make an AJAX call, to the server, what you can do is you can specify some input from the client to the server. That is, you can send some input from client machine to the server machine. So those inputs you have to specify in this against this data key value, against this data key. Okay, and those inputs you have to specify again in the form of a JSON object. See here, again I'm writing these opening and closing curly braces that represents, okay, that is a JSON object. Okay, now since it is a JSON object, you have to specify the values in the form of key value pairs. Okay, first here you see here, in this JSON object, these keys were sort of fixed. You always have to use this key URL, you have to use this key type. But in this key, in this JSON object, like the whatever you're going to specify against this data, here the keys are your own keys. Okay, so whatever you want your inputs to be called. So for example, you can write here like a colon and specify the value, say 21. It means you are passing one input whose name is a and the value is 21. Say another input you want to pass, say b, whose name is b and whose value is, say for example, flower, or anything you can pass actually. Okay, and another input, say for example, action, and here it is get program details, and this much I want to write. Instead of typing, I'm just copying it and I'm pasting it. Okay, now see, these two inputs I use only to demonstrate you the feature. They are not going to be used in the actual process. However, these input I'll be using it in the actual process. Okay, but again, you see here, these name of the inputs could be anything. Instead of calling it action, I can call it action. I can call it action 1 also. Okay, I'm sorry. I can call it action 1 also. Okay. So, okay then, now this is how you specify the inputs from client to the server. On the server side, how to receive this input, I'll be telling you in a moment. But again, okay, now this input also we have specified against this data key. The next input that you have to specify is against this, you can specify is against this before send key. Okay, there is one key called before send. Against this key, what you can do is you can specify a function. Okay, that function will be executed if you specify it, like then this function will be executed just before making the AJAX call. Okay, that means you have to specify a function here, and this is the body of the function. That's all. And what so if you specify this before send key and a function against this key, then this particular function will be executed just before making the AJAX call. What we want to do inside this function? So let's, for the time being, just display an alert message saying that, okay, about to make an AJAX call. That's all. The another key value pair that you have to specify, which is mandatory, is this success key. Okay, the success key, against this success key, again you have to specify a function, and that function is this is the function. Now what will happen is when you make an AJAX call, see here, when you make an AJAX call, it will execute some function on the server side, and at the end it will return you as it will return the client side as a JSON object. So if everything goes smoothly, okay, in that case, these whatever the function that you specify against this success key, that function will be executed. That is, if the the AJAX call was executed properly on the server side, if it has returned you a JSON object properly, and if the JavaScript function has received that JSON object, in that case it will be considered as a success. So in that case, what will happen is this function will be executed, and you can actually receive the the response JSON object here, and let's call it, say for example, result. Okay, that is, in this variable, whatever the JSON object it is returned by the server, that will be stored here. Okay, and for the time being, let's don't make use of this return this received value. Simply display an alert. First we'll check if everything is working fine, and then we'll update our project actually. So let's here display the success. And another one, the last one, another key value pair. See, you have to put a comma here, because you see this is a key and this is a value. You could have written everything in the same line. And yeah, I'm going to write it in a different line, but just to show you that it's a key value pair. Now see, success is the key and this part is the value against that key, and this comma is coming because of the syntax of the like JSON object. Okay, this is one key value pair specified, and then the last key value pair you have to specify is error. See here, every time the AJAX call might not be a successful call for any reason. This AJAX call might fail sometimes. Okay, in that case, what will happen is it might not return anything to the JavaScript function. So in that case, that JavaScript function will execute the function that you specify against this error key. Say I want to execute this function if error happens, and inside that function I want to display a message simply for the time being, and that message will say okay, error. So that's all. Like that's how you're going to make an AJAX call. Let me zoom out a bit so that you can see the entire part of the code, entire portion of the code. Okay, now you see here, this function we have written, and this function will be called, see, as soon as the document is ready, this function will be executed. Inside this function we have written, okay, first it will display this alert message, and then it will call this function, get program details. Now inside this program details function, what we did is we made an AJAX call. You see, we made an AJAX call from here to here. From here to here, we are making an AJAX call here. Inside that, we have to specify these flower brackets are used to specify a JSON object. These are keys, mandatory keys against which you have to specify values, like what is the URL, what is the what is the method, HTML, what is the submit method actually, whether it is post or get, and then what is the data type that we are expecting, or what is the return value we are expecting from the server, what is the data that we are sending to the server from the client message, what we want to do just before sending the AJAX call, what we want to do when the AJAX call is successful, and this is the return value of the AJAX call. I mean, the response that we receive from the server. And if the AJAX call is not successful, what we want to do, we can write inside this file. Okay, that much only. Now let's execute this program and check whether it is working or not. And if everything is working, then what we can expect as an output is that first it will show us this jQuery loaded message, and then it will make the AJAX call. So just before sending the AJAX call, it will first show us this message about to make an AJAX call. And based on the status of the AJAX call, if it is successful, then it will show us success. If it is erroneous, then it will show us this error on the screen. Okay, we are expecting a success actually. Okay, let's execute this program and check it out. I'm refreshing this page, and you can see jQuery is loaded. Okay, about to make an AJAX call. That is, up to this point, things are working fine. And then let's see what happens if I click on OK. It's showing me an error. Okay, no problem. That is, here, see, our AJAX call was not successful. This function was not executed. It is executing this function. It means that our AJAX call is not successful. Why it is not successful? You see here, we have specified the URL as get program details ajax.php. That's okay. We have this URL that is, we have this file, but inside this file, we didn't write any code. So obviously the call was unsuccessful, right? So we have to write some code inside this file. That is what, the actual function that we want to execute against this ajax call. Okay, let's first write some code here. So this is a PHP file. So we are going to write some PHP code here. So we'll be using this PHP tag, PHP. And inside that, let's see what we are doing is from here, from the ajax call, we are passing some input to the server. So let's first see how we can actually receive this input on the server side. Okay, so just for a reference, I'll be copying this part on the server, and I'm writing it, I'll be pasting it in the form of comments. Why did I do this? Because every time I just don't want to come to the JavaScript file and see, okay, what is the the key that I use to pass these inputs to the server. Okay, just for reference purpose, that's all. It's just a comment, don't worry about it. Okay, how we can get the inputs? See, the method that we used to pass the input to the server was post method. So automatically all these inputs will be there in the post array. It's a global array in PHP, and you can access that array using like this. So let's create a variable p, and then $_post you have to write. Okay, so it is the name of the a global array where all the post parameters will be stored. Now see here, from the client side we pass this key value pair. Automatically in the post array also these key value pairs will be stored. So against this key a, whatever it is there, we want to get it and we want to store it in a variable p. And the same thing we want to do with this b and action also. So against this key b, whatever it is there, we want to get it and we want to store it in queue. And against this action 1, whatever it is there, we want to get it from the post array and we want to store it, say, in a variable, say, call it action. Now what we want is, we want our ajax, as I said, I use these two only to demonstrate you the process. However, I said you that I'll be using it for some real purpose, and that's what we're going to do now. See here, this same ajax file will contain different parts of code which should be executed against different ajax calls. So how do you decide like which part of the code should be executed against a specific ajax call? So that we can do by making use of one input pair actually. So somehow from this JavaScript file, we'll be specifying some input based on which we can decide on the server side, okay, if the input is this, then we want to execute this block. If this specific input is that, then we want to execute that block, like that. So what I mean is, say for example, we can write an if block here, and then we can specify here if the value of the variable action1 is equal to say this get program details, then we want to execute this block of code. Now, if the value of the variable action1 is something else, then we might want to execute something else or some other block of code. Say for example here, get department details, like that. Okay, so based on these input we can actually decide, okay, this block of code should be executed. So if it is get program details, then we want to execute, say, this block of code. And here what we want to do, we actually want to connect with the database, or at least we want to make use of the database classes that we wrote previously and get the details of the programs from the database. But before that, we'll be doing something simple so that we first know whether everything is working fine or not. Once we are sure that everything is working fine, then we can actually go to the actual thing. Okay, so let's first do some simple things. By simple things, I mean, let's create an array. Let's call it result. And inside this array, we just store some numbers. Instead of storing some numbers, let's store here whatever we received from the client. Say we pass, say we received this p, so I'm putting this p as the first element of the array. We received this q, I'm putting this q as the second element of the array. And third element of the array, let's write here a string, like say for example, from server, or anything you can specify. Okay, and this array, this is a JavaScript, this is a PHP array that I have created, and this PHP array I want to send it back to the client machine. But as I have said, no, everything should be returned in the form of JSON object. So if you want to convert this PHP array to JSON object, rather if you want to in fact if you want to convert anything in PHP to JSON object, you can do it by making use of this JSON encode, very useful function, JSON encode function. And inside that function, you can write the name of variable. Here we want to specify here we want to convert this array result. So I'll be writing here result, and whatever it is the JSON object, that let me save it in another variable. Let's call it a return value. And this RV actually we want to return back to the client. And how do you return it? Just by writing the content in the response string by making use of this echo statement. Okay, done. Echo, then $return value, and after that we have to call this exit function to get out of this function. Okay, done. So now this time if we execute this program, everything should be fine. That is, you should get at least an error, a success message. Okay, let's try it. About to make an AJAX call, and this time also it is showing you an error. Why it is so? Because I have written here action1. It should be action actually, because this is the name of the variable, right? So what see here, we extracted whatever it is there against this action1 key. That is okay, but we stored it in a variable locally action, and that variable I have to write here, right? If I can write this variable name as anything actually, so that is most probably is the mistake. Let's try it. Now it is showing me a success message. You see here. So once again execute this program. First jQuery is loaded. That is, first this JavaScript function will be executed. See, as soon as this page is loaded, okay, let's execute it once more from the beginning. I'm writing the URL here. I'm pressing enter key. As soon as I press enter key, some response is received from the from the server, and as soon as it receives some response from the server, that is the page is loaded, this JavaScript function is executed. You see, let me collapse everything. As soon as the document is loaded, it is first showing me this message, the jQuery loaded message on the screen. Okay, and if I click here OK, then what will happen is immediately after that it will call this get program details function, and from inside this function we are making an AJAX call to this specific URL, and these are the details we specified. And then just before sending the AJAX call, we are displaying this message about to make an AJAX call, and that's what is appearing on the screen, about to make an AJAX call. And as soon as I click on OK, what will happen is, see, AJAX call is made, and on the server it will execute it will go to this particular file, get program details AJAX file, and from here inside this AJAX file we are first extracting the input from the post array, and then we are checking whether the action value, that is whether the value against the key action1 is equal to get program details or not. And if it is the case, and since we have specified this thing here, obviously it will be the case. In that case, what we're doing is whatever we have received from the client, the same thing we are sort of sending back to the client again from the server. That is, we are creating an array initially with P as the first element, Q as the second element, and the third element is a string. And then we are encoding the array into a JSON object, and that JSON object we are returning to the client machine using this echo statement. And after that, exit is executed. So as a result, since everything is smooth, it will actually activate this function that we have specified against this success key. So as a result, it will display me this success message on the screen in the form of an alert, certainly. And this is coming on the screen. And also this program details as it is the initial content of the page, right? Okay. I guess everything is clear up to this point. Now it's time to move further. And what we want to do is we want to now let's get rid of all these initial alert messages. We don't want to do anything right now. Before sending this AJAX call. Now we want to do some changes here, like what we want to do when our AJAX call is successful. Instead of displaying this alert message, let's do something like this. See here, we know that the response is stored inside this result variable. So this result variable is actually a JSON object which is received from the server side. So we can display this JSON object actually. So how we can do it? So to display this JSON object, first we can convert this JSON object to a string, and it can be done using JavaScript very easily. You can make use of this JSON library, and inside that you have this JSON.stringify method. Okay, So inside this method, if you pass a JSON object, which is result in this case, it will convert that JSON object to a readable string. And let's store it in a variable. Say let is this is how we declare variable in JavaScript. So let x is equal to convert this JSON object to string and store it in x, and then display this x on the screen. Okay, let's refresh this page and see this modified output. It's showing you, see here, it is showing you this array now, 21, flower, and from server. And this is what we actually send back to the client from the server, isn't it? Okay, then done. Now, after this, we want to now modify this AJAX file. This is, we didn't want to actually, echo back the content that we received from the client again back to the client, right? Rather, what we want here is we want to get the details of the programs from the server, and then that details we want to send back to the client. So for that reason, what we'll do is, see, we already have written, now I'm going to refer something from part 3 of this video series. So in part 3, we already have, written this database, class, like this database.php and programdb.php. Using these two class, now what we can do is we can get the details of the programs very easily from the database. Let's do it. So inside this get program details AJAX file, we're going to make use of these two files. So for that reason, first I'll be linking these two files with this PHP file. And how you can do that? It is very easy actually. I mean, it's just like you have to use this include once a statement, include once, and inside that we have to write the name of the files that we want to include. Okay, let's start with this. Inside this SMS folder, we have this database folder. Inside that, database.php and programdb.php. Okay, let's write them here. Database.php, database.php. You might be thinking I'm writing this path name wrong. Yes, certainly. But let me write the name of the files first. Rename. I want to write. Now, when you specify paths in the server side, then what you have to do is you have to start everything from the root directory. And how do you know what is the root directory or what is the path for the root directory? That you have to get it from a global variable in PHP. Let's declare a variable, say call it root, and then access the global variable server, and from there use this key document_root to get the path of the the root folder. And whatever you specify, everything should start with this root folder. Okay, so here I have to write include once, then whatever it is the root folder, then concatenate it with the string concatenation is done by using this dot operator in PHP. So I'm writing root dot and then the path name. Here, say for example, it is there inside the root folder. We have a folder SMS. Inside that we have a folder database, and inside that we have this file database.php. Okay, and the same thing we have to do for this programdb file also. That is root.sms/database/programdb.php. This is how we are going to include the content of these two files with our PHP file, with this PHP file. And then once these two PHP files are included, we can create instances of these of the classes contained inside these two files. You see here, let me show you programdb, for example. Inside this file we have a class called programdb class. So we have to create instance of that class to make use of the methods inside that class. So for that reason, what we'll do is, if it is this, then first I'll create an instance of the database object, database class. So let's call it dbo is equal to new database. Now see, if you are like sort of getting confused at this point, like what am I doing here? So I request you people to now see part 3 of the video series. That will make all your doubts clear. And once it is done, then you can come back here and you can continue with this process. Okay, at this part, certainly I have no other way other than referring to the previous parts. So I'm creating an instance of this database class, and also I'm creating an instance of this programdb class. Okay, let's say new programdb. That's all. Now once we have that, let's see how easily we can get the details of the programs from the database just by making use of this object pdo. And inside that, see, inside this this particular class, we have a method here. We have a public function here that says get all programs, okay, and that returns us actually an array that contains the details of all the programs, okay. That array, each element of the array will be a separate program details. So we are going to make use of, we are going to call this function actually. So from here, so PDO and then get all, now what is the name here? Get all programs. Okay, let's see. All on this, get all programs. And see here, we have to specify one database object here. So that we already have created. So I'll be passing it directly. Done. And whatever it returns, let me store it in the variable, say result, result. Done. Now our result array is the return value that we get from this function. So we don't need it anymore. And then the same thing we'll be doing with this result array. That is, we'll be converting it to a JSON object. We'll be storing it back in a variable, say RV, and then we'll be writing this this value in the response string by making use of this echo statement, and then exit. Done. Now this time, if I execute this program, I should be able to see something like this. You see, we are receiving, and I cannot zoom in. I'm sorry for that. But then also, what we have received here is an array. Actually, you see this starting square bracket and this ending square bracket. It means we have received an array, and each element inside this array is actually a JSON object. See here, this is the first element, which is a JSON object, that is the starting with this flower bracket, ending with this flower bracket, comma, and then this is the next JSON object, this is the next JSON object, like that. For each row in the database, we are going to get a JSON object. Okay, done. Up to this point, if things are clear, then what we have to do, what is the next step is, okay, we have received this JSON object, this array of JSON objects. Then from this array of JSON objects, we have to create this HTML content, which is nothing but actually a table. Okay, let's first create the basic simple version of the table. So what we're going to do is, instead of displaying it in the form of an alert, what we do is, see here, now see here where we have to write the code, this conversion code, like the JSON object to HTML content, we have to write inside this JavaScript file, right? So we are doing it on the client side. Actually, we want to do it on the client side. So for that reason, we have to write it inside the JavaScript file. Okay, let me close everything and go to this JavaScript file. And inside that JavaScript file, what we want to do is, as soon as we get the response, instead of displaying it in the form of an alert, what we want to do is we want to create HTML content from this JSON object result. Okay, not from the string version of the JSON object, directly from the JSON object. Okay, so for that reason, okay, let this alert be there, but let me call another function. Say for example, get HT. Let me write everything in lowercase HTML. Okay, so this is a function that I'm going to write where I'll be passing the received JSON object, and from where I'll be expecting some HTML content. So that value, the return value, I'll be storing in a variable. Say let's call it HTML. I can call it anything. Okay, I'm calling it HTML, but I can call it anything. That HTML is equal to get HTML from this JSON object. Now let's write the code of this function first. So we'll be writing it above this function, and this is a function, so you have to make use of this function keyword. Done. Now from here, we'll be creating some HTML content, and then what we have to do is we have to put this HTML content in the main page, because our main page, see here, this is the page that we received initially from the server, isn't it? If I see the source, you can see that, okay, in the page we have only this much. But if we generate some content using this JavaScript function, then where we're going to put the code actually? I mean, how we're going to, add some HTML content dynamically in this HTML? So that's the main question now. Okay. So for that reason, what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to change something initially at this page. Okay. Inside this get program details.php, the initial HTML content that I send back to the that the server sends back to the client. Here, this div is created that contains these program details, but below this div, again, I'll be creating another div, and inside this div, And I'll be calling this div, I'll be giving a name to this div, okay, and I'm calling it, say for example, the content, okay, content div or something. I'm calling it content div. It is the name of the div. It is a name that I'm giving to this particular div, okay. And just to make sure, like, show it like where the div is there, like, see, right now if I refresh the page, you're not going to see the div actually, because the div is empty, so basically it's not there, okay. So to make sure that the div is there, let me draw the div there, okay. So how we can do it? Okay, for that reason, what we are going to do is, now see, this CSS file is also already included with our HTML content. So let me write something there inside this CSS file. So I'm opening it. See, whenever we write CSS, custom CSS, like first thing that we want to do is we want to reset the three things actually, by writing something like star and then open and close flower bracket, and then we want to set the margin to 0. Otherwise the browser adds some default margin. We want to override that thing. The default margin should be 0. The default padding should also be 0, and the box sizing we'll be using as box, border box, okay. See here, that's the importance of usefulness of these IDEs. Okay, done. Now this is the initial setup. We always I usually do, like most of the developers do these things this way, okay. That's initially we want to override these few values, so you will also be doing it in the same way. And after that, let me write here a class, okay. Say dot, and let's call it, say, why am I writing this class? Because I want to apply that class on this particular div, so that this div becomes visible without any content also, okay. So for that, say I'm calling it, say I'm just calling it test class, okay, test1 or something. I'm not going to keep it in the project. Just for demonstration purpose, I'm using it. And here, what am I going to do is I'm going to write here, say, minimum width. As soon as I give minimum width, it will actually, the div will be there even if it is empty. Okay, say 100 pixel, and minimum height is 100 pixel. These values are they are not like the final values, okay. I'm just using it as, again, I'm saying I'm using it only for demonstration. And then I'm writing here, say, border, and border is solid 1 pixel of green colors, okay. And in fact, this minimum width, let me make it like the full screen, okay. So instead of writing here in px, let me write it here in 100 viewport width, okay. So the entire screen, and 100 viewport height similarly. So, and border is 1 pixel green, okay. Let's do it actually. Let's refresh the page whether it's coming or not. It's not coming right now because I have not applied that class. See here, I wrote this class test1 where I have defined some CSS properties, and then that class I want to apply here actually. So the class of that div is this one. And let me show you now whether that green box appears or not. See here, as soon as I do that, you can see there's this green box coming. The scroll bar is coming because of this height here. I have written, where is the CSS file here? 100 vertical height. Let me make it 90 vertical height. And then I think this scroll bar will disappear. Now it's gone. Okay, this is our box, okay, this div. Whatever we want to put dynamically, we are going to put it here inside this div, okay. So this div is there. Then let's go back to our I'm closing the CSS file, I'm closing this PHP file. Now let's go back to our JS file here, function get HTML. Now from this function, we are going to return some HTML content, and that HTML content, what we want is, we want that HTML content to be the content of this div, to be the content of this div, okay, this div, okay. Let's see now. Let's start with a simple example. Get HTML function. So let's declare a variable here. Let x is equal to, I'm using this this specific symbol. I forgot the name here, I'm sorry for that, but this is the leftmost on the keyboard. You will find the leftmost just below the escape key, okay. And you could have used open single quotation, double quotation, but using this one has lots of advantages. Like I can break the line in this way without any problem. Okay, but if it is a single quotation or double quotation, I think we have to do string concatenation quite frequently. So for that reason, I'm using this pair symbol. And then what I'm doing here is, okay, let me write some HTML content here. Say, for example, here I'm writing a table. I'm just creating a table irrespective of this JSON object. Okay, don't worry about it for the time being. I'm creating a table. Okay, and inside that, let me write here. Okay, let me write it in this way. Okay, this is a table, and inside that we have these table head and end of table head, and then table body and end of table body, and inside that table head we have table row, and inside that table row I create a few rows. Say for example, I create here not table row, I'm sorry, I'm doing it wrong. Table head we have to create. Inside the table head I have to create a few columns. So by writing this th tag, here I'm writing the first column as, okay, let me write everything in same line just to make some space. Say for example, I'm calling it, say for example, serial number, the first column. Then the second column, say the code. The third column, say title. Fourth column, say department. Like that. Okay, and I'll be writing those rest of the columns in a moment, but I just want to show you an example. Irrespective of this result JSON object, we're creating this table. This is the table head, and inside this table body we'll be creating some table row here, table row, end of table row, and inside that we'll be creating some table data. Say for example, td, end of td, and serial number 1, copy it, and the code I'll be writing something, title I'll be writing something, department I'll be writing something. Okay, code is, say for example, CSB, and title I'm writing as, say for example, B tag in CSE. You might be thinking, why am I doing hard coding? Just to show you an example. Okay, like department, say for example, CSE. So let's say this is the HTML content generated inside this function get HTML. And then at the end, what we want is, we want this HTML content to be returned to the caller. So return X. Okay, so whoever has called this get HTML function, it will now receive this HTML content, right? And then what we want to do is, now let's see, then inside this, from here we are calling this function, right? I mean get HTML. So this HTML variable will now have this HTML content. Okay, let's first display it in the form of an alert, and then we'll move further. I'm moving very slowly, step by step, because these are important steps. Okay, if you know how to like deal with these steps, then you'll know actually how to build an entire project. So alert HTML. Now let's refresh this page and check. Now see here, this is the HTML content that is received. Table head, and this is the head of the table, this is the body, and we have created some table row and table data. That's all. Now what we want to do is, we do not want to display the HTML content like that. We want to insert that HTML content in this page itself, that is, as the content of this particular div, we want to insert the content, right? And this can be done very easily using JavaScript actually. And how do you do that? You can make use of something like this. The dollar, I'm using jQuery again just to grab the HTML element. Dollar, you get the div whose name is whatever it is, content div. Okay, when you write dollar and hash and then content div, it means that you are grabbing the HTML element whose ID is content div. Okay, dot of that div, I want to set the HTML content to be whatever it is that I have received. Okay, and instead of displaying an alert now, what I will do is, I don't need this alert anymore. Anyhow, the page will be updated automatically, and it will have that table inserted as the content of that div. Let's now refresh the content and see. See, it is showing you the table actually. See, serial number, code, title, and department. Serial number, code, title, and department. If I view the page source, in the page source it is not there, but still you are seeing this thing actually, right? That's sort of magic, isn't it? And interesting also. Okay, done. Now we know now how we can insert HTML content dynamically on the fly using a JavaScript program. Now let's, instead of this dummy table, now let's create the actual table and insert it in the in that as the content of that particular div. Okay, so let's do it. So for that reason, we have to write some JavaScript code. So okay, let's do this. This result is a JSON object, and this is actually an array of JSON object. Okay, so for that reason, let's declare a variable. Let's declare a variable called I. Let I is equals to 0, and then iterate over the the array of that JSON object. So for I equals 0, I is less than whatever it is the length of the array. So the array name is result dot length, L-E-N-T-H, and then I plus plus. It will iterate over the rows of, or the elements in the array, and for each element, so if it is the first element, then we want to add the the head of the table. Before that, let me declare another variable here. Let x is equal to this. I'm not declaring two x's, okay? I'm going to get rid of this x in a moment. Let x is equal to this, and inside that I want to create a table. I mean, this x, initially I want to have this value table, and that's all. And then if the value of the variable I is equal to 0, that is, if it is the first row, then what we want to do is we want to update this x by writing x is equal to x plus some new content. Okay, that is, table was already there. Then we have to do this actually, table head and table head, right? This much we have to write here. If it is the first row, then only we want to create the head, right? So for that reason, I'm writing it in this way, table head, and then that's all. But here we have to write these, these columns, all the columns. Serial number, first column, code is the second column, third is title, then department, then what else? Then number of semester. Let me copy this actually. And then I think I can write here also. Then this is number of semester, number of semester. It's too long, no? So write this symbol, semester number, and then right here another one is graduation level, GRDTN_LVL. I'm writing it in this way. And then the technical level, TECH tech_LVL, technical level. That much only, I guess. Serial number, code, title, department, semester, graduation level, and technical level. That's all for the time being. And that's all. If it is the first row, if it is the first object, then first we will be appending the head, and then we'll be doing this thing. X is equal to x plus, again we want to append something more at the end of this string x. So what do we want to append? No matter whether it is first row or second row, we always want to append. No, if it is a first row, then we also have to do this table body. This will appear only for the first row, and then inside the table body, we have to actually insert this row, this row here. Okay, this one here. X is equal to x plus, here we have to write this table row. No matter whether it is first row or the second row, we have to write this thing, right? Now, what we want inside this table row here, this one, we do not want to be a fixed number, hard-coded number we do not want here, right? We want here a serial number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So here we can write here, actually we want to display here the value of the variable I plus 1. And if you simply writing I plus 1 will directly display I plus 1 on the screen. But if you want to execute that statement, you have to make use of this dollar symbol. Okay, $I plus 1. Okay, done. I mean, why it is now, I don't need this x anymore, so let's get rid of this. Okay, $I plus 1, and then inside this table data CSV, what we want here is the code of the program. So here we'll be writing dollar, and inside that we'll be writing the code of the program. And from where we are going to get the code of the program? See, we have this result. So I'll be writing here result. It is an array. Of this array, the ith element, which is a JSON object. Inside the JSON object, we have a key. And what key it is actually? You see here, the return values are coming in. So to know the keys, we have to go back to this database program DB class. And what are the keys used? This thing as PID, Pcode, these are the keys actually. So let me copy everything so that every time I don't have to come here. Okay. And let me paste it here for some time. Okay, I'm not going to keep it forever. I'm just pasting it just to refer to the keys. So here I want to display the code. So code key is Pcode. So I'll be writing here Pcode. That's all. And then here I want to display the what is this? Title, right? So it is P title actually. See here, P title. So same thing. Instead of BTech in computer science, I'll be writing here P title. And done. And then this one, let me bring this case. And then this one is department code, that is D code, I guess. Yeah, D code. Okay. So this one is department code. So D code. And then the next one we want is the number of semesters, the graduation level, and the technical level, isn't it? Number of semester, graduation level, and technical level. So let's put them there. D code, and then number of semester is written as NOS. So NOS. Graduation level is written as ZL and TL. They are easy. ZL and TL. That's all. The row is created. So we want this thing to happen for all the rows. For all the rows. Okay. For the first row, it will include that head part, body part, and everything only once. And for no matter what is the whatever it is the value of I, it will always append the row at the end. And once the for loop is over, that is once all the rows are included, we want to terminate DC. We want to terminate the body first. So we'll be writing here x equal to x plus terminate the body. So here end of the body. And also we want to terminate the the table, right? So we'll be writing here end of the table. That's all. Our HTML now this will be returned to the caller that is here at this point. That will be stored in HTML, and that HTML will be put as the content of this particular div. Let's refresh the page and check the output. Oh, it's showing every output. Everything is fine except this $i+1 is coming as it is. That I don't want there. And why it is coming as it is? What mistake I could have done? The mistake is that I have to write here these flower brackets. Okay, let's refresh this page. 1 2 3 4 5 6 like that. This this table is being displayed. Okay, right now this table is not responsive. Nothing, no such properties will be there. Not responsive. This scroll bar is coming and something is happening. But then also don't need to worry about it. We are going to now modify the content. And for that, we can actually apply some CSS on this table and using Bootstrap. Okay, and that's what we're going to do. See, using Bootstrap helps you. It saves a lots of time for you. In this project or in this video, I'm going to use Bootstrap very minimally. Most of the CSS I'll be writing, I'll be showing you how to write from scratch. But said we want to design this table using Bootstrap, then how do you do it? Okay, let's do it using Bootstrap first, and then we'll apply our own CSS to make it responsive and to apply those animate and those effects that I showed you at the beginning. Okay, if you want to use Bootstrap with your project, that is an important thing. If you want to use Bootstrap with your project, then what you do is I was hidden for quite a long period of time, right? Okay. If you want to use Bootstrap, then what you have to do is you have to go to Google, and then there you type Bootstrap. Oh, it will show you the link to the official website of Bootstrap. Click on that link. You will be landing in the home page, bootstrap.com. getbootstrap.com, and from there you scroll down and you'll be seeing this download option. You click on that download option, and then from there you click on this download button. Once you click on this download button, it will download a zip file in your computer. So go to that zip file and unzip that. Okay, so I'm using this unzip application and I'm using it, unzipping it, so extracting it. So once you unzip that zip file, then you will get this folder. Inside that folder you should have two subfolders, CSS and JavaScript. Okay, so what I do is I'll copy this much, that is whatever it is there after unzipping it, the content of the folder, and I'll be copying it and I'll be pasting it in our project folder, which is there inside jam and inside htdocs, and inside that we have this SMS folder, inside that we have this global folder, and inside that I'm going to paste this one, both these two folders, CSS and JavaScript folder. Okay, this CSS and JavaScript these two folders are from Bootstrap. Inside that CSS folder you will have one file called bootstrap.min, bootstrap.css.min or bootstrap.min, this file, CSS source file, bootstrap.min. This file I have to include with our program, with our project. So how to include these projects? You can do one thing actually. You can go to the home page and there you can click on examples and you can copy the code from one example. Okay, there will be something. Okay, you have to click on docs, I guess. The first example here. Yeah. Yes, here. This example. This is how you include, right? Link to the bootstrap.min.js CSS file. Let me zoom it a bit. You have to include this link to the bootstrap.js.min.css and link to bootstrap.bundle.min.js. Okay, these two files you have to include. So here, see here, you can include, obviously you can directly write this CDN link, but for that when you are developing it, your computer should have internet connection. But if you download it and store it locally in a computer, then you do not need that internet connection. Without internet connection also you can work. Okay, so for that reason actually I downloaded it. But anyhow, these are two files that I have to include with my code. So I'm just going here and linking to my HTML content. Here you see my HTML content is here, and I just have to link another CSS file here. You see everything is same, isn't it? Link, but instead of writing this CDN link here, what I'll do is that will come from my local drive, which is SMS, which is /SMS global. Inside that we have this CSS folder. Inside that we have this bootstrap min.css. Let's see. htdocs. Inside SMS we have this global. Inside that again we have CSS folder, and from here bootstrap min.css. Okay, same thing for this JavaScript file also. Here what I'll do is again I'll go to this example, and from here I'll copy this line. It's actually the same thing. I don't have to copy it, but yes, just to know the name of the file, it is actually bootstrap bundle min.js. I have copied it, so let me copy it actually, and let's paste it here. There's another JavaScript file that I'm including, but the source is not this one. Up to this. Okay, that is SMS global JavaScript bootstrap bundle main.js. If these two files are included properly, then Bootstrap should work properly in your project. Okay, let's first apply some Bootstrap. So one thing that you can directly apply is say, okay, I want to change the color of this program details. Okay, so what I can do is I can apply a Bootstrap class here, that is text info. That's all. The color of this this program details text will change to something bluish. Okay, if Bootstrap is linked properly. So let me refresh this page. So it is coming. Actually, it is linked properly. Okay, done. Now, why I included this Bootstrap is, okay, see here, directly you can make use of some inbuilt classes like this, okay? You don't have to define CSS explicitly for these simple things, okay? That is one advantage. Another thing that you can directly use is that you can apply here, say, this table, that wherever we're creating this table inside this JavaScript function, we're creating this table, isn't it? Where we are creating this table, right? On this HTML element, we are going to apply a Bootstrap class. Let's write it. Class is equal to, and the class is table class, and also table hyphen stripped class, striped. It will show the table alternative table rows in different colors. Let's see the effect of applying this class on the table element. I refresh this page, and as soon as I do that, you can see that these rows are now coming in different colors. See, that's the easiness of applying Bootstrap classes. Like for many small things, you can actually directly use these Bootstrap classes. But certainly, if you want something very specific, then for that you have to write your own custom CSS code. Okay, now let's see here. This is the current status of our page, or the current output of our page, and but we want something like this actually at the end of the day, right? So the main difference between these two pages, other than the styling effect, is these buttons here, right? In this page, we do not have this add new button, and also we do not have these buttons on the against each row. These edit buttons are missing here, right? So let's first fix this problem, and then we'll get into the details of this styling. Okay, for that, first let's add this first button here. You see this add new button. Okay, we want to add this button just above the table. So what we'll be doing is for that reason, just above this table we want. So for that reason, what we'll be doing is, okay, let's declare this x. Let's declare this x here. Let x is equal to initially blank, and then just before the table we want to create a div. So we'll be writing x is equal to x plus whatever it is. I mean, it was previously with x. Along with that, we want to add this string div here. Okay, and then inside this div, what we want is we want to create a button. So we'll be use this element, HTML element button, button, and that's all. And this is the end of the button element. And we want to display the text here, say add new on the button. And also, okay, let's first fix this thing here, and then x is equal to this, and then after that we want to write like x is equal to whatever it is previously it was in x. Along with that, we want to concatenate this string. So what it will do is, let's refresh the page and see the effect first. It will add actually a button just above the table. It will add a button just above the table. Thing is, this button is not styled, right? We didn't apply any style on this button. But what we can do is, using Bootstrap directly, you can apply very easily. You can apply some styles on this button. So for that, what we have to do is we're going to apply a Bootstrap inbuilt class called button, and button hyphen say, let's call it say success. These are some inbuilt Bootstrap button classes that we can apply on buttons. Let's see if I apply button class, then how does it look like? Okay, now it is showing you this button like add new is coming. When I write button success, it shows the button in green color. But if I write here, say button info, it will show me the button in a different color like this. So in our reference model, we have this in blue color. So for that, the color is button primary. And let me refresh this page. See the effect here. See, okay, now this button is added. Now this we have to add each one button against each of these rows there, right? So for that, what we have to do is we have to, it means what we're going to do is actually we're going to add another column in the table, and the value means the cells there in that particular column against in each row will have a button actually. So first, let's create the column. And how do you do that? here in this table head, we have to create a column like this, and this column will be like this column will not have any header, so simple, a blank. But here in this table data part, we have to add, like in each row we have to add one more column, and that column will contain a button, and let's call this a button, button button, and this is the end of the button class. And then here we want to display this text edit, and also we'll be applying some class here. Class is equal to same button primary. Okay, button primary. Okay, what happened? Why? Okay, as soon as we do that, let's see the effect here by refreshing the page. See, button effect, against each row, now this button is also appearing. So content wise, our page, both these two pages are same now, right? Yes, now only thing is which is different is the styling, right? Now let's do it. So first let's start with these alternative color. Let's try to change these alternating colors. Okay, the default colors are like, you know, some gray and white. Maybe we want to change it to say some pink or green color. Let's do it first. How do you do that? So for that reason, what we have to do is, you see, we have these where is the table we have created? This is the table we have created, right? And inside that we have table and table stripped. It is the class which is responsible for changing the the colors of the table for alternate rows. So what we're going to do is we're going to override some of the properties of this table, I mean of this table stripped class. And how do we do it? It's very simple actually. Again, you have to open this open our CSS file, and inside that CSS file, what we'll be doing is we'll be doing something like this. All the rows of this table table stripped class, we want to grab those rows. So for example, inside this class, if there is a table body, t body element, and inside that t body element, if there is a t row element, then what we want to do is, if that row is the nth child, I mean if it is the even number of child of its parent. See here, these rows are actually the child of this body class. Okay, so if that row is even number of child, then it will have, we want to apply here some specific CSS. And if it is an odd number of child, then that is, if it is in the even position, if the row is at even position, then we want to apply some CSS. If the row is at odd position, that is 2 and plus 1, and then we'll be applying some other CSS here. Okay, and what changes we want here? We want to change the background color. So background color, we want to change to say yes, let's what we wanted, some pink color. Okay, let's start with this color and let's convert it to this one. Okay, done. And then this, for odd rows, what we want to do is we want something from green shade like this, maybe this one. Okay, done. Let's now see whether it's working or not. Okay, for that, what we'll be doing is, let's refresh this page, and it's working, right? I mean, the color of these rows are changing. Also, what we want to do is we want to apply some padding on these rows. One thing you should realize that in HTML table, rows you directly cannot apply padding. Okay, so for that reason, you have to apply padding individually for each of these columns. This can be done easily. Again, here the same thing, inside this table strip, I mean up to rows, it's fine, and we do not need to actually check if it is even row or odd row, just row. And inside that row, if it is a table data, and for all those, we want to append we want to add here some padding. So we'll be writing padding top and padding bottom. So padding top, and let's say, for example, for the time being, I'm writing 1 rem. Now it might be confusing, what is rem? Rem is just a unit as like pixels, but it is related, it's not, it is very flexible unit actually, like and this unit we use to make pages responsive. Okay, using pixels, making the page responsive is very much difficult, so we'll be using, instead pixels, we'll be using rem. That much only I can tell you about RAM right now, and maybe one or two more things that I'll be telling you in the in the coming few minutes. But uh, if you really want to know like what are the difference, what are the difference between RAM and then maybe pixels or maybe some other units like say M and percentage, then you can let me know it in the comment section. I might create a separate video on it. It's a completely different story actually. Okay, it will. No, I just do not want to get distracted from the or deviate from the main point here. So just consider for the time being, this is just a unit of like the way pixel is a unit, the same way RAM is also an unit. So padding top is 1 RAM, and then padding bottom also I want to apply 1 RAM. Okay, that's all. And let's see whether it works or not. Okay. So I'll be refreshing this page. I guess it has added some padding there. Let's change this to 1 RAM to 5 RAM, like some prominently large padding here. It's working, right? So I do not want actually 5 RAM. 1 RAM will be enough, and that's all. Done. Once we know, like we have added this padding now what is next, and let's see. Centering of these program details. So it's appearing here at the corner sort of, right? We want to bring it here, and also we want to apply some margin or maybe padding. There are some spaces there, right, from top and bottom. And so let's first bring it to the center origin. Okay, I mean this center of the page here. So it is a standard straightforward approach. What I'll be doing is, okay, let's where these program details is written, it is written inside this div actually, and here we have applied actually this text info class just to see the effect of just to actually we changed this thing just to test whether Bootstrap was working or not. But here, instead of applying text info, this time I'll be applying here a custom, that is our own CSS class, that is, say for example, heading. Okay, and inside heading, what I'll do is I have to write the definition of this CSS class. Okay, this is not an inbuilt Bootstrap class or something. So for that reason, what I'll do is I'll write heading here as a class. What I want to do is I just have to our goal is to bring the content at the center. So for that, the standard approach is you have to make display at the center of a div. So for that reason, you have to make the display property of the div as flex, and then two more settings: justify content at the center and align items at the center. Align ALIZ and align items at the center. So whenever you want to put something at the center of a div, then you have to apply these few things. You can set these few properties on the div, and then whatever you put inside the div, it will come at the center of the div. Okay, let's see now whether it is working there or not. I applied that class. I guess I applied, so it's coming anyhow at the center of the div. Now what we want is we just want to increase the font size of the div. I mean this font size, we want to increase it slightly to make it comparable with this rest of these things, slightly bigger in fact. So what I'll do is I'll make this font size here. I'll write say 4M. So let's see what 4M is here. 4M is like boom. Why is it so? 4M I'll be using say 2RAM. Okay, so it's like this much in 2RAM. Now 2RAM is working fine, right? But before that, this RAM thing, whenever we are using RAM, people usually do one thing. First, they convert the default, they change the default, font size, and the default font size is you can change it. By default, it is 16 pixel. Okay, so we are going to change the default font size, and we'll be putting HTML is the root element, so we are setting the font size of the root element as I'm going to write something like here 62.5%. Okay, so 62.5% of the original size we'll be considering as the font size. Now you might be thinking, why 62.5 and from where this number is coming? So what we want is actually we want, so for example, just consider for example, let me write it here. I'll not write cleanly, just I'll just write here. So for example, we want now something to be say 300 pixel, okay, 300 pixel. So in that case, what happens is we have to convert this 300 pixel to RAM. Like suppose you want to specify that 300 pixel in terms of RAM. So you have to do a calculation here. So by default, 16 pixel implies 1 RAM. Okay, 16 pixel means 1 RAM. So in that case, 300 pixels will be like 1 over 16 multiplied by 300, like that. So it's a complicated sort of computing that you cannot do in your mind. But what if we have like 10 pixels means 1 RAM, right? So in that case, what will happen is, say we have to like set the width of something as 300 pixel, then we can directly write 300 pixel will become 30 RAM, because 1 RAM is 10 pixels, so 300 pixels will be 30 RAM. So if we can set the default pixel size to, default font size to 10 pixels, then all our calculations will be much easier in terms of RAM. So for that reason, what we have to do is, see, 16 we have to convert to 10. How do we do that? Like 16 is 10, no? So it means what will be 1 then? 16 is going to become 10. So 1 is going to become 10 over 16. And so if it is 100, then it will be 10 over 16 multiplied by 100, right? So that is the percentage. So 10 over 16 is, if we calculate using this calci, then you will get 10 over 16 is 62.5. I mean, if I multiply it again with 100, 62.5. And that's why I'm setting this initial font size, the root font size as 62.5. So automatically now 1 RAM will be 1 RAM will be 10 pixels. So here, if I now write heading as 2 RAM, it'll be of like 20 pixels. Okay, let's now, it will become a bit smaller, I guess. Yes. Now program details is like 2 RAM 20 pixels. Suppose I want it to be 4 RAM, so I'll be writing 4 RAM, and let's refresh this page, and program details. 4 RAM is too much, I guess, no? Maybe 3 RAM will work fine, or maybe 3.5 RAM. We always can adjust this thing. We should not waste much time here in this tutorial video setting this RAM value properly. But anyhow, you got the point, I guess, right? Now what? Now you see, now what else we want to do? We want to now okay, we want to give some space between this button and this table. Like we want to bring some space here. So what, for that reason, what we are going to do is we are going to see where this button is. Actually, this button is, see, this button is inside a div, which is inside this div content, right? So here we have to apply some CSS. So I'll be applying here class is equal to, say, add new. This is not an inbuilt class. Again, I have to write the code for this class. So I'm writing here add new, and then I just want to apply here some margin. So I'll be using margin. Sorry, what is that? Margin. Maybe from all the 4 sides, or maybe top or bottom only. So margin top is, say, 1 RAM, and margin bottom is, say, 1 RAM. That's all. And I want to apply this class here. It's already applied. Now let's see. There should be some space between this button and this table, and also from above also there is some space here, right? So done. And what else then? And we should see, there is some boundary gap here, right? It's not starting from the edge and it's not ending at the edge, isn't it? There's some gap here. So let's apply that thing first. See, we want some space here. We want some space here. How do we do that? So we can do this by applying some margin on this container class. That is one way, I guess. Yes. Okay, let's apply some margin on the container class. Container class in this, on this green box. Let's apply it. So we know what class is this green box, right? That class is this test class we have created now, this test one. See here, if we apply some margin, say for example 1 RAM again here. So in that case, what will happen? Let's see. Apply some margin 1 RAM. It's coming, but this horizontal scroll bar is coming. Why? Because of these sizes. Now, as I said, no, I'll not be using this size anymore. So let's now see whether it fixes the problem. Yes, it is showing you the content like 1 rem from the side. Okay, even if I make it smaller, then also you will see some space there, but it is having a problem here. You can see this div is sort of not behaving properly, huh? Anyhow, we didn't apply anything on responsiveness, so certainly we cannot expect responsiveness right now. And so, okay, let's where we were applying this margin 1 rem. So let's make it say 3 rem or something. Let's give it more space. Now leave some more space from both the sides. Okay, done. And then what we want is we do not want this green box. This green box is not there, right? So we do not want this green box also. So we do not need this border. So we got rid of that thing also. Now it looks something like this. It's coming closer, isn't it? Yes. And then what we want then everything is done almost, and are only few things left, like this effect. Like as soon as I keep my mouse cursor here on this button, something is happening. So let's do that thing, because that is slightly comparatively that is easier than applying this. Now final thing that will be left to it, making this web page responsive. Other than that, this effect and this effect, both of them are same actually. Okay, so let's apply them. So what we want is for all these buttons, whatever the buttons we have, for all these buttons we want to apply a we want to apply some specific CSS effects there. So let's do it. If the class is let me try with this thing. If the class is if the element is button, on all the buttons we want to apply this CSS effect. So I'll be applying it in this way. On the element button we want to instead of writing button class, actually what we have to do is, on the button, when we hover over the button, that is if we keep our mouse cursor over the button, then what we want to do, we want to let me check this thing. There's this button there. Okay, to translate, actually we want its position to change, so we'll be applying this transform and then translate. And then on the y direction we want to translate. Okay, now we want the button to move slightly upward direction. It means here the y coordinate goes from 0 to the highest here, from lowest to the highest. So if we want to go to up, it means we have to go in the negative direction. So say say minus 1 or 2 rem, say. Okay, let's see what happens if I write 2 rem minus. 2 rem minus means it will go above by 2 rem. And that's all. Let's apply this CSS here and see the effect here. If I keep my mouse cursor, you can see, okay, some awkward behavior it is showing me. Okay, okay, we can adjust, we can make it smooth. Actually, let's see what is the first thing that we can do. The first thing that we can do is all the transition we want to give this transition some time, right? By default, see here, this transition happens on different properties, like say opacity. If you are changing, then there is a transition. If you're changing the size, that is width and height, there could be some transition over there. Okay, so this for all the properties. For the time being, I want the transition period transition for all. I want this transition period to be 1 second. Okay, but you can specify this transition period for different properties like width, height, opacity, different times. Okay, but here for the time being, I'm setting everything as 1. So now let's see what change does it make in the web page. So if I keep my mouse cursor here, now at least it's not sort of flickering, right? But it is going up and immediately it is coming down. But what we want is, we do not want our button to move that far. Okay, so if we like instead of going to by 1 rem, I just want it to go by only 0.5 rem. Okay, slightly we want it to move upward. That's all. Okay, that's all. The thing is, if the distance is if the distance is small, the movement is very slow, sort of, right? So instead of making it 1 second, then I can make it say 0.5 second, that is 500 millisecond. And done. Let's now see the output. Here I refresh, and okay, it's sort of working. Right now, let's give some, we can make it a bit faster also, say 0.4 or something. and it will be slightly faster. And after that, what we want is, okay, here not only this movement, this backward shadow is also coming, and giving this backward shadow in CSS is not a big job. It's just like what you have to do is you have to apply again here on hover. We want to apply some shadow, so we'll be applying some filter, and that is box shadow, drop shadow, sorry, drop shadow. This is a function through which you can apply shadow. So I can write it like, say 0.5 m and 0.5 m and 0.5 m. I'm just trying with these values, and I'm not sure how it will look like, but we can adjust at the end. And then at the end, we have to specify also a color of the shadow. So for example, I'm writing here blue color or something, blue. How do I do? White. WHIT. And once we have it, then we can use this with a color. So let's stick with this one and see what is the effect of applying this filter. I refresh this page and done. If I keep my cursor here, you can see one shadow is appearing. The XYZ is specified, so accordingly this shadow is coming here. Suppose I want this Z to go far away from the original thing, so let's say it's 5M. Okay, let's see where it goes. No, let's give this and see. 5M means it's not on the screen even. So let me give, say, 2M. Will it be there? 2M. Okay, it's like, it's sort of the blurriness, isn't it? I mean, it's appearing somewhere, but it's not very much clear. So I give here maybe say 0.1 RAM. So let's see what happens. A very small value. It's directly there, like it's close. I mean, it's not close in Z direction, actually. It is the blurriness you can think of, right? So that's the thing. And these X and Y are the X and Y. Let me do something here. This X part, let's change it to say 4 RAM, and let's see, it will go in the X direction far away. I guess it's far away it is going, right? And we can make it down like by making it say 5M. The shadow will appear. Sorry, the shadow will appear. Refresh the page, the shadow will appear somewhere here. Okay, so we will stick with our 0.5 0.5 0.5 settings, and that I think looks good, not that bad, right? Okay, done. We want to apply the same thing on see here on this color, it is not visible. We can change this shadow color also by applying the same CSS trick that we have applied on these different colors or these rows. But instead of doing that, let me change the row colors there. Where do we specify the row colors? This one, right? So let me make it, see here what we do. We can make it a bit light, right? And we do not want it from this red section. We want maybe from the blue, light blue here, like that. And this one, green is fine, but let me make it a bit light. Okay, let's now check. Oh, it's okay. Now it's okay, I guess, right? Okay, done. Then what we want to do is we want to apply the same effect sort of on these rows also, isn't it? So we can do it very easily again. Now, whatever we did with this button, we'll be doing it with these, table rows. So where are those rows there? You see, those rows are like inside these table strips. Say from here we'll start. Inside this, after this class table stripped, if there is a element table body, and if there is a after that, if we have table row, on those rows, when we do hover, we want to apply this CSS. Okay, we want to apply this CSS, and this time, did I do a mistake somewhere? Oh, this semicolon is not needed. And this time, what is happening here? Table strip replace text replace, from where it is coming? No, table body, then table row, that's all. When we hover, something I messed up completely. This, okay, this thing is needed actually. When I hover, and then I want to apply this CSS. Okay, let's first see the effect if it is working, and then we can adjust. Okay, now it's working, right? See, it's going up slightly, and then it is showing the shadow also. But we want here the shadow to be slightly dark, and that thing we can achieve by let's make these values slightly smaller, maybe 4, no, maybe 3 actually, 0.3, 0.3, 0.3. This color we want on this side, and done. And let's stick with this thing. Okay, it's now appearing like this. Slide, done, done, done. Okay. Now the final thing, we have to make this page responsive. Right now this page is certainly not responsive, right? What we want is we want these font sizes we want these font sizes to have their values automatic, sort of. Okay, if you are viewing the page on a small screen, then font size should be small. If it is on a big screen, then font size should be big, as clear as that. Okay, so how do we do that? For that, okay, let me first set the font size. See here, what are the fonts that we want to change? We want to change the font size of this heading element there. So for that reason, what we do is, let's see where is the CSS of that heading here. We have specified the font size as 3.5 rem, but we will not do it in this way now. What we're going to do is we are going to replace it by a variable. So variable, and it should come from the value, say for example, font of the heading, or heading font. Heading font. I'm declaring a variable actually in CSS now, and this value of this variable I have defined inside this root element. I can define it inside HTML element, but I can do it in this pseudo element root, and then inside that I can define heading font means, say for example, what is that, 3.5 rem. Okay, let's see if everything is fine, then doing this change should not change anything about the output actually. Let's refresh. Now it's not changing, I guess. Let me change this value from 3.5 to some arbitrarily large number, say maybe 7.5 rem. It should show me the heading in a very large font, like done. It's working. So let's restore it to 3.4 or 3.5, whatever it was, and done. Similarly, we are going to replace the font size of these buttons and these these table rows and these table head, okay, by variables. First we will do that, and after that we'll make it responsive. Okay, so how to do it? Simple. We'll just this button here, add new class button, and we have this button class, button primary. So inside this add new class we have a button. So of that button we want to change the font size. So what we'll be doing is, or directly we can change the font size of all the buttons, I guess. Let me try all the buttons, because anyhow all the buttons we want to change the font size of all the buttons we want to change similarly. So we can apply it directly on the button class like that. Here, let me do it here, button, and we are going to here we're going to add this font size is, say for the time being I'm writing here 4 rem. Okay, let me check if it is working or not. Okay, and if it is the case, then let's check. Font size is 4 rem, it is not working. Button class, and then font size is 4 rem, or maybe say large number 8 rem. It's not working in that way. So what we have to do is, okay, the button class which is there inside this add new class, let's do that and check if it is working. Okay, it is working in that way. So what we'll be doing is we will be applying this button, I mean, see here where this button class is there, we have this JavaScript file. Where is this button, the first button here? This button is inside this class add new. Okay, so here by writing this CSS, what I mean is, inside this add new class, if there is a button, for all those buttons, we want to set the font size to be 8 RAM, okay, something like that. But we do not want to change it to be 8 RAM to 8 RAM or something. So we'll be using here again a variable, and let's call it say button font or something, and let's declare this. Let's set the value of this variable to some reasonable value at this root element is equal to, I mean, colon. Say let's stick with this, start with this 2 RAM. Okay, done. Let's refresh this page and see the effect here. 2 RAM, its effect. This font size is getting when changed, right? If I write here 1.5 RAM, it will be much smaller in that case. It will be much smaller in that case. See here, add new. The same class, the same thing we want to apply on these edit buttons also. So for that reason, what we'll be doing is, okay, let me declare another variable. Say on a button font, same font we'll be applying here. But these buttons, these edit buttons, where are them? These edit buttons are there inside this td class, I mean td element, right? So let's start with this td element and let's see whether it works or not. Let's go there, and all the buttons which are there after the element td, all the buttons we want to change some properties, like whatever it is here, it's the same thing we want to set for these td buttons also. Okay, let's refresh this page and see the output. Now it's working here, right? These buttons, the font sizes are getting increased. Now we can set it properly, like what value we want. Button font, maybe 1.3 RAM will be enough, I guess, like comparatively. 1.3 RAM, maybe 1.2 RAM or something. If I make it arbitrarily small, it should be small, right? Just to make sure that it is working. Okay, it's working actually. And then, in fact, the button font we can make smaller even. 1 RAM will be enough, I guess. 1 RAM is reasonable, I guess. Okay. Same thing we'll be doing here with this, table row fonts. Okay. So for that, what we'll be doing is, again, for all these table row, we want to set the font size. So we'll be doing it in this way. Here only we are doing it. So here, for all the table row, no matter whether it is the first child, last child, we want to set the font size to some value of some variable, the button font, and then I say it's table row font. And you might be thinking, why am I declaring so many variables? Because I just want to make it responsive. You'll come to know, you'll get the fruit in a moment of this hard work or something. tr font, I want to set it, say for example, again 1 RAM. Let's see the effect first, and then we can do more things on it. This one, table row strip, table body, table row, for all of them I'm setting the value of this variable, I mean the font size, to be 1 pixel, sorry, 1 RAM. And let's refresh the page. 1 RAM is this much here. Okay, then it's not 1 RAM actually that we want slightly bigger, maybe 16 pixel by default, so 1.6 RAM will be the default font size. So this is the default font size. Done. Now what we want table row font is applied. Now changing this table row font is not changing this heading font, right? Heading font is not changed. We can apply the same font on this heading also. Yes, it will reduce our task, say for example 1.6. Table row, the same fonts let's apply on this this table head also. So I'll be copying this and this table, not table body, table strip. Inside that we have table head, and inside that we have this th tag, and for all those th tag I want to set this thing to th font set. Okay, and let's declare this as a separate variable, so that if we want to change, we set a different font size for the headings, we can do it very easily. Okay, so just let me make it, say for example, an arbitrarily large number, just to check if it is working, 3 RAM. And let's now check if it is 3 RAM. I don't think it's 3 RAM. Okay, but then also let me make it, say 6 RAM, and Let's see. No, it's not working. It's not working. Why it's not working? Table head font. Where is it? Table head font here. Table strip. Okay, we have to start with this class actually. So it's done, right? So we don't want these headings to be that big actually. We want, maybe 2 pixels, slightly larger headings will work fine, or maybe slightly smaller headings will work fine. So instead of writing 1.6 pixel, maybe 1.3, 1.6 RAM, maybe 1.3 RAM will look good. Maybe it looks good there. Okay, done. Now we have everything ready except this responsiveness, right? Now let's see how we can make it responsive. To do that, without using any library, if you want to do that, then you have to make use of this media query feature. So for that reason, what we do is, and that's the reason that I have declared all of them as variables. Now see how easily we can change the value of these variables for different screen size using media queries. Okay, that is this value of these variables for different screen size will set as differently. I mean, so if it is a big screen, then maybe it is 3.5. If it is a small screen, then maybe it is like only 1 RAM or like that. Okay, so how we can do that? Just by making use of this media query. So for that, you have to write @ and then media, and then you have to specify the screen width. So maximum width is, say, from 0 to say 300. We want to set the let's divide the screen into some screen sizes. You can consider the Bootstrap's screen sizes also, but just for the sake of an example, let me divide it into some screen sizes. Say this is your entire screen. So from 0 to 300, from 0 pixel to 300 pixel, if the screen size is this much, 300 pixel, then we want to apply one setting. Then from 300 to 600, we want to apply another settings. And then from 600 to everything, actually, we want to apply the third settings. But you can go on, right? You can create as many segments as you want. But for demonstration purpose, I guess 3 separate segments or screen sizes will be enough, right? So let's first do this thing. If the minimum width is 0, and at the same time, that is, if the minimum width is sort of if it is minimum width, means if it is more than 0, and this maximum width, that is max width is, say, within the range of 300 pixels, then what we want to do is, okay, we have to specify here pixel, and here also pixel. Then what we want to do is we want to apply this class. So, and what we want to do is we want to change the value of this. That is, we want to redefine these root elements properties here. Okay, that is, root will now become this. If it is within a very small screen, then let's make it, say, just for the sake of an example, let's make it, say, 2 RAM, and let's button font, let's make it, say, a 0.5, and I'm just making everything half, sort of 0.8, and then say it is 0.6 maybe, or maybe 7. So within this range, this setting will be applied, and other than that, these settings will be applied. Let's see. At least 2 breakpoints should be there, 1 breakpoint should be there. If the screen size is very small, now see, it's working here. See, if the screen size is very small, it is changing this font sizes automatically, right? Everything is getting smaller. Up to 300 pixels, it will be like this. See, I guess at this point 300 it is becoming more than 300 pixels, so immediately it is taking the default font size. So I can set one more breaking point there, like, say, same media query I'm writing. But if it is now, if the minimum is more than 300 pixel, but within the range of but below 600 pixel, I want to set it, say, I want to make it even, okay, we can adjust it at the end. So I want to make it, say, for example, 3 RAM. What is the default one? 3.5. Okay, 3 RAM, and the default one is 1 RAM. So maybe I want to set it to 0.7 RAM, and the default one is 1.6. Maybe I want to set it to 1.2, and the default one is 1.3 here. I want to set it maybe 0.9 or something. Okay, I'm not setting them up like very meticulously, but certainly I just wanted to show you the difference. I mean, that the effect that things happens there. Okay, so the actual value you can like try it for a moment, and you can come up with some good settings always. Now there should be now two breakpoints. One is for this small screen size from 300. Once it crosses 300, now see it's getting bigger, but it is not as big as it is from here. You see, from at this point there is another change point here. You see the font sizes are getting changed here again, and that's all. See the small and then medium and then large. Now you can now set the font sizes as you want or as you wish. I mean, you can set these breakpoints as you want or as you wish. Okay, so I can make it bit small. Let me check how small it is on small screen. Is it readable? It's readable, like, but then also this is like this table is not responsive certainly, but then also it's like up to some extent it is responsive, right? Whenever you are using table, this problem I guess will always be there, like, because in that table there might be lots of columns there, and it might not be even possible to see all these columns on the same screen actually. So for that reason we might have to display the data in different format, maybe in terms of in the form of some cards, which is a nice way of doing the thing in responsive, like if we want to achieve responsiveness. But then also one solution to this problem is that we can now set the font size slightly again smaller than whatever we have right now here for this small screen. So instead of writing 2 rem, 2 rem is not a problem, I guess. The problem is table row font and table head font. Table row font, let's make it 0.6 rem, and I guess I do that. It's okay, fine. But I guess if people now, we can also, what we can do is this margin thing we applied, right, on this content element, content div, and content div has some margin, right? So okay, test one, that's the confusion actually. This test one is our class, and then here if you see this margin is there 3 rem. Instead of 3 rem, let's make it 2 rem, and let's do it this way and this way. Now it's almost like fitting on the screen, but again, you're thinking like, yes, if the screen size become more smaller, then again there will be this horizontal scroll bar. So, but then also, at least in this case, let's fix it by writing 1.8 rem, and so I guess we'll fix this to off this bar. Okay, then not 1.8 rem is also okay. Let me stick with this 1 rem, and let's do it, because yes, we can achieve that. Like if I see the problem, there is problem here. Like if I make the screen bigger, then this margin is also getting bigger. Actually, that is the problem I was worried about. But somehow, if we can do like on small screen, the margin is now small, but on big screen, the margin is big, then the problem is solved, right? So how do we do that? For test one margin, we want to be 1 rem. So yes, the same approach we can apply here. I mean, instead of declaring it in this way, let's declare it like take it from the value of a variable. Say let's call it, say, margin, and the value of it to be, okay, that's all, margin, and then put the semicolon. Let's declare this variable in this root element everywhere. Root element margin, and then if it by default I wanted it to be 3 rem, but if it is a very small screen, then I want it to be like 1 rem, or maybe smaller than that. If it is a medium sized screen, then we want it to be, say, for example, 2 rem, like that. And let's now see whether it works or not. Okay, now see, for big screen it's okay, 3 rem is fine, I guess. But for small screen, it's like, it's still 3 rem. Okay, why? Okay, this is default one. I don't want 3 rem, right? I just want it to be 1 rem if it is a small screen. If it is a big screen, 2 rems. Okay, great. And then let's refresh this page and see, on small screen, small margin; on medium size screen, medium size margin; and on big screen, it's big margin. This is how we make a page sort of responsive. Okay. Okay, then what else left? Almost done. I mean, everything is done. Only this color is slightly changed here. Here the color is black. You can always play around with it, and then rest of the things are as promised, isn't it? You got this responsive web page with these CSS effects, and all this information are coming from the database. And we are we got this information from the database using some AJAX call. Okay guys, then that much only in this part of the video. So in the next part, what we're going to do is we're going to apply, we're going to write the code against this, the click event of these buttons. See here, as soon as we click on this button, what we want is, we want one, okay, let me show you the original reference point that I, started with in the first part of the video. So we have this local host, this is our ultimate point, right? Let me reduce the size to 100%. Yes, now here we have these programs. See, as soon as we click on this add new button, we want this pop-up window appear on the screen. This window is called as model. Okay, model in CSS, Bootstrap CSS. We are going to use Bootstrap directly, and we're going to create this model. It will be only 1 or 2 lines of code. You don't need to worry much about it. But anyhow, we're going to learn about like how we can display this model like as soon as we click on a button, okay, in CSS. Same thing, the same model will appear here on this, but like when I click on these buttons also. One thing is different. When I click on this edit button, automatically the information will appear here. But if I click on this add new button, this information will be blank or default value. Another thing is that this department input is this department element is actually a drop down element where by default automatically all the departments which are there in the database they will be loaded. Actually, the user will be able to select the department just by specifying the name of the department. Same thing is here also, but only difference is that see here in this case this drop down contains all the department names, but initially nothing is selected. But if I click on edit button, then the corresponding department will be selected. However, if I click on the drop down menu, all the departments I'll be able to see, and I'll be able to change it anytime I want. All right, so this part we're going to do these things we're going to do in the next part of the video. See, more or less the same concept that we learned today we'll be using in the next part. So if you can digest this particular section or this particular part properly, then following the next video is not going to be it's not going to be a difficult job for you. Okay guys, then that much only in this part of the video. See you guys with some new content in the next video. Till then, have a nice day.